Okay, sir. Audible, sir.
Yeah, okay.
I'm good, sir.
Fine.
Sir, please unmute, sir. Kumar, sir. Please unmute, sir.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, friends. I welcome you all to today's seminar. The topic of today's seminar is the latest amendments and current issues in GST. The chairman of today's session is Sri Rakesh Chitkara.
Sir, Ramana garu,
Sir.
మీరు కొంచెం టేక్ ఓవర్ చేయండి కొంచెంసేపు కుమార్ సార్ వచ్చేంత వరకు. Right, sir. Okay, sir.
Good morning, friends. It's a pleasure to be in this meeting, and today's topic is latest amendments and current issues in the GST Act. Well, without going into further delay, today's chairman is going to be Rakesh Chitkara, a well-known advocate and who is an ex-service with regard to this Central Excise and the Customs Act. And I would like Mr. Chittibabu, Mr. Ramana to read out his biodata. Ramana?
Sir.
Please read out.
It's a great pleasure to introduce our today's chairman, Sri Rakesh Chitkara. Sri Rakesh Chitkara has completed education and joined in the services, and he has been in the services till his retirement. He has enrolled as an advocate in the year 2008 and practicing in various fields of laws, which includes taxation, criminal defense, property law, general, legal, employment and family cases. Sri Chitkara has argued many more cases which are reported in various magazines and journals. He is married to Ranjana Chitkara in the year 1982, and they were blessed with a daughter, Miss Radhika Chitkara. Though Sri Chitkara has denied to give his biodata, our president, Sri M.V.J. Kumar Garu, was able to collect some information about him, and though the biodata is very short, still biodata of Sri Chitkara leaves no words, and he is one of the gigantic personalities in the social media, and he is famous with regard to the GST, Central Excise, Customs and Service Tax, and so many matters and other cases also. He has started many WhatsApp groups and was providing information and education and the case laws about GST, Central Excise, Customs and Service Tax. With these few words, I proudly present to the group, to the chairman of today's session, Sri Rakesh Chitkara. Thank you, sir. Thanks for giving this opportunity to me. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chitkara will be joining us very shortly. And today's speaker is a very well-known person. There is no introduction. There is no necessary for any introduction, but still, as our duty, we are going to introduce him briefly. Chittibabu Garu,
yeah.
Could you please introduce our speaker to the audience?
Yeah, very good morning to all. It has been immense pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Sri Sudhir B.S., BCom FCA, age of 36 years. He's a chartered accountant, a core partner, Heringe Associates, and heads the Hyderabad branch, which provides consultancy, audit, and litigation services in indirect taxes. He has completed his schooling and graduation in Bangalore, and he has been qualified as a chartered accountant in the month of November 2006. He has done his entrepreneurship development program at Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. He has been contributed various articles of professional institutes like Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and Trade Journal, Service Tax Review, and Manupatra. He has presented papers at various branches of ICAI, ICSI, and ICWI. Master trainer for the ICAI New Delhi and a faculty in National Academy of Customs, Excise and Narcotics, which trains the departmental officers. Presented papers in various traded forms like ASSOCHAM, KSCAA, FAPCCI, YI, AP Plastic Manufacturing Association. Been a visiting faculty at Oakson Business School, BITS Penani, etc. He is also a joint author of the Practical Guide to Service Tax and jointly compiled GST tariff, which is published by Bharat Law House, and How to Tackle Service Tax Problems, published by Bharat Law House. He was part of the Hyderabad study group on GST formulated by ICI and contributed for preparation of background materials on GST for training the CBEC officers. He has presented papers on GST in various forums. He is a member and co-chairman of Indirect Tax Committee of FDAP CCI and past member of Regional Advisor Committee of Central Excise and Service Tax Department, Hyderabad. He has also been co-author of book on GST and real estate. Thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Sir Gaurav. Without any delay, I would like the speaker of today's session, Sri B.S. Sudhir Karu, to take out the speech and to give us a good speech about this latest development. Sudhir Karu?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Three important questions, question which comes every often. One is, when is this pandemic going to be end? Second is, am I audible? Third is my screen visible? I'm sure you will not be able to answer the first one, but can I have the answer for the second and the third?
Sorry, your voice is increased.
I'm audible?
Yes, but very low. So kindly adjust.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And third one is also okay.
Perfect, sir. Thank you, Sitapati Garu, and thank you for my wonderful introduction. So the topic which I am going to deal today is the latest amendments and the current issues under GST. So the coverage is going to be that I will be taking you through the latest updates which has happened of late, and also what is some current issues which is there, which is actually burning, and many of our clients would be having most of these issues on a day-to-day basis. So let's look at how the law has been evolved over these issues and what are the course of action which is available to us. So this is something we will be looking at various issue in terms of interest, whether it is gross on net, the 110% of 2A credit restriction. So various other things is what we will be going through. So let me start with giving you the latest updates, what has happened as far as the GST is concerned. One is that all of you would be aware that GSTR 9 and 9C is supposed to be filed for the 18-19 financial year, which has been extended to 31st of October 2020. Originally, the date would have been December 2019. With multiple extension, it has now come to 31st of October 2020. The question comes up is that whether it is whether 1 month is sufficient for us as we stand today. We have less than 30 days, and whether we will be having sufficient time for finishing our 9 and 9C, or will there be a further extension, is a question which has been already been asked. In my view, because there is only a 1 month of extension, it clearly implies that the government is in no mood to give more time. So more or less the 31st October could be the deadline for filing of GSTR 9 and 9C for 31st of October 2020. Very important question comes up here is that say I am coordinating with my client, and the accounting team of client itself has been tested for COVID positive, and they have been under quarantine for whatever 15-20 days, and thereby they are not able to provide the data. Then how will I complete on 31st of October? Or there could be an issue with my own team, which is also a fact which is happening. So what is going to happen if I am not complying with 31st of October 2020? It is important for us to understand that the maximum penalty will be 200 rupees per day but shall not exceed 1% of the total turnover. So 200 rupees per day is the penalty for GSTR 9 not filing within the time. When it comes to GSTR 9C, there is no late fee which has been prescribed, but there is a general penalty of 25,000 which could be applicable. That also, if we are able to give a reasonable grounds, we will be able to take the waiver of it. So in sum and substance, what the message I wanted to give is that don't do any returns in a hurry and don't goof up the returns. Take sufficient time, even if it requires a 5 days delay, 10 days delay, the cost is 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees. So you based on that, you look at giving the proper disclosure and what is required under 9 and 9C, because this is very important for us to understand that there is no amendment possible to either your 9 and 9C. 9 is the last chance for any correction and any representation which you want to do, which you are not able to do in GSTR 1 and 3B. Now, if you are also not taking this seriously, the GSTR 9, because of hurry, if you are doing some, if you are having some issues, then it becomes difficult. My voice is okay, audible?
Yes, sir.
Sudhir sir.
Yeah. So that is the reason which you have to look at taking this seriously and have the returns filed in a proper format. Delaying is not going to cost huge. This is what I
Sudhir
want.
garu, sir,
Yes, sir.
sir, if possible, please increase your system volume, sir.
Yes, sir. Am I better now?
Okay, sir, right, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. So this is something which you have to keep in mind. Second important implementation from the government point of view is e-invoicing. So most of you would have been heard that e-invoicing is compulsory wherever the turnover of 500 crores is there. There was a confusion whether the 500 crores is in a preceding financial year or in any financial year. So those clarification is also been given saying that who have crossed 500 in any preceding financial year 17-18. So it need not be that only the last financial year, that is the 19-20 financial year. From 17-18 any financial year, if you have increased 500 crores, then you are supposed to do a e-invoicing. So few facts on e-invoicing is that when this e-invoicing is going to come is going to attract only when you are making a B2B transaction, not a B2C, that is business to business transaction, where you are quoting the GSTN number of the customer. That is where the e-invoicing becomes mandatory for those people who have crossed the threshold turnover. Now the question comes up with, what is this e-invoicing? Am I supposed to go to the portal and generate the invoice there? Answer is no. You are going to generate your own invoice in your own accounting package, Tally, Excel, whatever format which you are doing. All that what you have to do is that you have to upload these details in the government portal, and the government portal will give you a hash number, IRN number, which is going to be there. That IRN number has to be affixed on your invoice when you are making the dispatch of goods. So the advantage of doing this, the e-invoicing, is that the entire format of your invoice will be a machine readable form. So today when you are sending an invoice in an Excel format, it can be opened only in an Excel by a recipient. He cannot open that in Tally. He cannot open that in his SAP. But when you are generating an e-invoice, that e-invoice file is being sent to your client or vendor or whoever it is, it can be opened in any system, any software. So that is the advantage of going into an e-invoicing, where it is going to reduce the multiplicity of efforts over a period to come. So now they are looking at 500 crores, gradually they will be reducing it to 100 crores, and more or less after some time every invoice should have been generated in e-invoice. That is the ultimate aim. So this also has been deferring for quite some time. In fact, the chairman Chitkara sir and me, we were having a discussion. So he would throw some light. He was telling that the PMO office also is closely monitoring, and they want this to be implemented. So now the trade is not ready with this because of the pandemic and various other issues, because it is having a lot of system changes. Now the route what they have taken for giving a deferment is very interesting, where they have told the provision is going to apply. I am not deferring the applicability of provision. See it very beautifully they have done. So they say that it is provision is going to apply. However, if by chance you have not done, if by chance you have not done the e-invoicing for the month of, Sir Chepandi, am I audible?
Sir, please carry on, sir. Please carry on.
Yeah. So if I am not able to do the e-invoicing for the month of October, I will not be penalized. It will not be considered as a non-compliance. Subject to a condition that I should post facto from the 1 month, 30 days from the date of invoice, post facto, I should go to the portal and generate an e-invoice for that, the IRN reference for that. So post facto, if I am doing, it will be still be considered as a compliance of this provision, and it will not be considered as a non-compliance. So this gives the way and approach the government is taking, and somewhere the message is that the due dates will be started looking at seriously. Because as far as the GST is concerned, we have been always calling from the consultant's point of view, this has become a law of deferment. Everything is getting deferred. There is no due date which has been fixed and they are not stable. Yes, because of the initial implementation challenges, which is fair enough. But however, we need to be observing that there is a change which is happening and government is becoming serious on the deadlines, and this is why this sort of an amendments has been brought. Next is the date of implementation of the QR code. So what is this QR code? This again is a different provision than of a e-invoicing, where they say for B2C customer, you have to generate an invoice which will be having a quick response code. So the quick response code is something which is very similar to your Paytm scan or your UPI payment scan, which any merchant would be having. So the advantage of QR code is that any of the QR code reader, many of the phones today, the camera itself is having an inbuilt feature of a QR code reader. If the QR code has been read, the entire invoice will be coming to your cell phone or whatever device which you are using. So that gives a confidence on the customer, whether the vendor, the trader, the retailer who has collected the tax, whether it has been remitted as it registered, not registered, whether it gets accounted or otherwise. So this becomes a very important check for the evasion in the retail sector, and that has been extended to 1st of December 2020. They have not taken the e-invoicing route here, but they have given a deferment because because it cannot be post facto ratified. In e-invoicing, post facto ratification is possible. Now here the customer comes, he takes his invoice and leaves. Post facto, he cannot generate a QR code, again call the customer and give it to him, thereby considering that they have given an extension till December. Other relief which has been given is the composition tax payers in late filing fees for delay in filing of GSTR 4, the quarterly returns. They have given a relief for any tax period for 17-18 and 18-19. The late fee would be nil if the tax payable is nil. Otherwise, 500 rupees per return, 250 plus 250 for the GST. So that is a maximum cap. Instead of every day of delay, for nil returns they have given a waiver, and for other they have capped it at 500. So late filing fee for filing the final return, the wherever the surrendering of the registration has been happened. So that also they have given a relaxation by doing a maximum late fee of 500 rupees wide notification. There is also some provisions which is been given clarification as to Aadhaar authentication in case of a GSTR registration. So all the signatories and the partners or the directors which you are mentioning in the GSTR registration, that needs to have a authentication, the Aadhaar authentication. So that is the provision which has been coming. So this is a quick shot of the latest updates which is happened in the month of September is what I have covered. I have not got back a bit of early because most of them were the deferment of the due date and giving a relaxation for the government to issue the notice or giving a relaxation in terms of anti-profiteering provision. So I was not very sure if that would be of interest to all of us as a consultant. So what I decided is that I will spend more time on giving the current issues, the burning issues under the GST, which may require some professional attention and require serving of the client. So one of the common issue which has been there is that whether the GST has to be paid on the gross liability or the net liability. Consider this is a typical case which we have dealt. So one of the client was a steel trader and he did a 200 crores of turnover in a particular month. And the GST liability was coming to, I think it was 100 crores. GST liability was coming to about 18 crores. 17.95 crores he was having ITC, 5 lakhs only was supposed to pay in cash ledger. Returns was filed delayed for 1 month for various reasons. Now, question comes up is that there is a delay in filing the returns, interest is going to come, which I am going to accept. Now, the question comes up is that how much is the interest which I have to pay, on what I have to calculate? Is it on that 5 lakh rupees into 18% interest, or it is that 27 lakhs, that is the total 20 crores into 18%, whatever 18 crores into 18%, what is the amount of interest to be paid, whether it is on gross or net? There is some typo error in this particular slide, kindly excuse me, but please look at whether it is on the gross or net, what is that we have to pay. So in this typical example, if you look at the interest liability, if it is on gross, will come to 27 lakhs, which is much more than the liability what he has to pay. So what government did not get is only 5 lakhs within the time. So it should be restricted on 18% on for 1 month on 5 lakhs, which comes to 7,500. This is something which we have to consider. 31st of a small history about this, how the law has been availed here is 31st council meeting. There was a discussion that whether the interest should be on gross or net. So they made it clear it should be whatever amount is paid through electronic cash ledger, only that has to be considered. Then there was a instruction which was issued by the to all the commissioners saying that the law section 50 provides that it should be on gross liability, and they also quantified some huge crores of revenue which could have been collected, and they asked to enforce this particular provision. And the another challenge which was coming here is that we are not, there is no requirement for issuing of a show cause notice because interest is automatic. The moment you have filed the returns delayed, there is no requirement for the department to give any sort of what you call the, they need not give any show cause notice. Show cause notice will come when you have not assessed the tax. Here you have assessed the tax, you have delayed assessed tax, interest is automatic. So what was happening, the challenge is that directly my bank was getting attached, my customers were getting attached, my properties was getting attached because the amounts were huge. So this had lot of challenges, and there was the first decision which was coming from the Telangana High Court in case of mega engineering, where they told that the section 50 is very clear, and they told the interest should be paid on the gross liability, not on the net liability. This gave further strength. There was also a tweet which was done after this particular thing saying that the court has been confirmed and we have to go ahead with recovery. So again, the representation was made to the council, and there again they told it should be on cash payment only, and it should be from a retrospective effect from 1st of July 2017. And a welcome move of amendment to the section 15 was made, where they told that net amount payable in cash after deduction of eligible input tax credit that only should be liable for interest was given. However, this provision was not been notified. The provision was amended in the act, passed in the parliament, but they did not give any notified date for this. The question was coming up whether it will be a prospective or a retrospective. So there was a tweet which says that it is going to be a prospective and the demand is payable. Then came is the Madras High Court decision where they told interest is on net. They have not considered the they did consider the mega engineering case, differentiated it. They say we don't want to agree with that. It is a wrong law and interest should be on net because that is what is a loss to the government. Thereafter, there was a circular which came, which told the effective date is notification notified that it is the effective date as 1st of September 2020. So they made it as a prospective. There was a press release saying that it is prospective, but we will be not doing a recovery from 1st of July 2020 because that is what the council is saying. Thereafter, there is a latest CBEC circular which is 18th September 2020, which gives the attention saying that they acknowledge that it should be a retrospective, and they are telling that recovery would be done only on the net tax liability only, first effective from 1st of July, and the suitable amendments would be made to bring the intention of the legislation as suitable intention. The amendment is what has been clarified in this particular section. Whatever the show cause notice which has been issued, technically for an officer it is becoming very difficult because the show cause notice is having the show cause notice is having the show cause notice has to be adjudicated based on what is the show cause notice has to be adjudicated based on the provision of the law. They cannot go with the minutes of the council meeting. So if at all the show cause notice has to be adjudicated, they have to adjudicate it on the gross liability because section 50 read with notification says that it is from 1st of September and not from the 1st of July 2017. So thereby we need to issue this particular the show cause notice which has been issued has to be kept in the call book till there is a retrospective amendment to section 50. So this is the broad background which has been happened as far as the interest is concerned. So few things which we need to consider that Supreme Court in case of Pratibha processes has been clearly made clear that the interest is a compensatory in character. So what is not gone to the government, that is the actual amount which has to be with that. Eicher Motors says that the facility of credit is as good as a tax paid. When I have already paid to my vendor, it is already there with the government. That is an advance tax paid by me. That is the view with the Eicher Motors takes. And in case of Landmark Lifestyle, there was a stay granted on the interest recovery. It is again, of course, after that the reflects High Court judgment, Madras High Court judgment also came in. So Honorable Supreme Court in case of BC Srinivas Shetty also says that whenever there is the valuation fails, the levy fails. In this, if you closely look at section 50, it says that it shall be collected in the manner as may be prescribed. And a manner as may be prescribed, if you look at as may be prescribed, is also defined that it should be prescribed in the rules. But if you look at the rules has been not made in the manner for the collection of the interest. So when there is no mechanism prescribed for collection of interest, can the interest levy fail is also something which we could look at when we are litigating these matters. Of course, it is matter of no time for them to include a provision, include a rule by that gives only a simple notification for them. Of course, it has to be ratified later, but issuing of notification is something which they will be looking at. But this is something of a legal ground which we could look at. So in sum and substance, it should be on net liability even for the past. Now the question comes up, very important open question comes up is, okay, so wherever the notice has not been issued government also will be recovering only for the purpose of, they will be recovering only on the net amount. So that is the circular is there, that will safeguard me very good. Second is where show cause notice is been issued, that will be kept in logbook. They were not call book. They are not going to adjudicate it. That is also wonderful. There are two other scenarios. What to do in this scenario? One scenario is that my bank account has been attached for the gross amount. Now, once the gross amount it has been attached, the circular says it is a net amount. What to do for this? My bank account has been freezed. How will I get a relief? So here what you have to do is you have to write to A banker and B department, or rather I'll say A to the department and B to the banker, keeping in loop, saying that this is the circular, this is the instruction, and this is the intention of the law. We request you to restrict the attachment only towards the net liability, if at all you want to have the attachment with you, or you could always volunteer to pay the tax on the net, interest on the net tax liability, and ask for the lifting of the attachment. Although specific instruction on this is not there, going by the intention, this is what the government is supposed to do. So then another issue is that I already, from my bank account, they have already taken money on the gross liability. Now what will I do in this case? In this case, you should make a refund application because the amount has already gone there. Of course, the refund application, if you file, they have to give you a show cause notice saying that this is the provision and why I should not be taking the entire interest, or why I should not be rejecting interest refund which you have claimed. Again, this show cause notice would be pending till the amendment has been there, or based on the circular, based on the intention of the law. For a person where you are not taking money, you are taking on net. But I am a person, you have taken the entire money, but you are denying to give me a refund. So I am being put under a different footings. So there is inequality between the same class of assessee. This is something which you could go into the writ jurisdiction and get a writ of mandamus for giving the refund. Of course, all these things has to be looked at only when there is a huge amount which has been involved, which has been already gone as a liability of the interest. But this is something as a professional for us, when the client comes to us, we should give them that this is a possibility. It is up to the decision of the client whether he wants to fight this in the High Court, fight it with the department, or say, okay, I've already paid, mentally I've fixed that it is a cost. Now I don't care whether it will come back or not. It's okay for me. But let me tell you, at this time of pandemic, every rupee somewhere it is coming, every businessman is interested to take it back. So get back to your desk and see wherever your clients ended up paying on the gross, see if there is an opportunity which you could get, of course, for a professional opportunity for you and encashment opportunity for a client in a win-win situation, and see whether we could help them in getting the refund. So this is something which you could look at. Next comes is another provision, which is 36(4), which is a matching of the ITC. So here also I would like to, before getting into the crux of the issue, I want to give a small background. Initially, when the GST law was introduced in 2017 July, they came up with three returns. One is GSTR 1, GSTR 2, and GSTR 3. So each returns get auto-populated in another return. So my one gets auto-populated in 2A. From 2A, my one gets auto-populated in customers 2A. From customers 2A, the credit automatically goes and sits in GSTR 2. Now, whatever the vendor has not been filed, my customer can always punch in the data of that 2, which is going to come and sit in my 1A. So my 1A gets auto-populated into 1, then the circle gets completed. This was a beautiful system. All these confusions, the bogus invoicing, all those things would have not happened if this would have been implemented. For whatever reason, this was not implemented. They removed the concept of GSTR 2 which was a very, very beautiful tool where even if your vendor is not disclosing, it is not part of your 2A, you add an option to put it yourself. That would have gone and auto-populated in 1, and then it would have been his problem. His 1 and 3B reconciliation would have not been happening. There would have been mismatch, and easily the notices could have been given to him. However, for whatever reason, they have removed GSTR 2 and they bought only 2A and 3B concept, which was been bought. Now, there was nowhere written in the law for the 1718 or 1819, there was nothing written in the law where only when it comes in my 2A, I have to take a credit, nowhere is written. So please do consider this. I'm again repeating, financial year 1718, 1819 and 1920 up to October, this particular provision which I am talking about, 36(4) was not in existence. That means to say that I was eligible to take the credit even if that entry was not there in my GSTR 2A, as long as I have fulfilled all other conditions. That is possible condition, that there should have been a receipt of the goods, there has to be a proper invoice, it should be used for the business, it should not have been block credit, I should have paid within 180 days. All these conditions, if you are satisfying, then you are eligible to take the credit. Only not having an entry into A did not stop the credit. However, n number of notices has been issued on this. So this is again something as a professional help to the client, which we could look at and fight them out, saying that 2A was not at all required. The only time when the 2A requirement came was in October 2019, where they told that I will give you a credit, whatever is there in 2A, plus I am going to give you a buffer of 20% ad hoc amount, even if it is not there in your 2A. So only 20% was the deferment which I was getting. Later in December, they thought that 20% is also huge and they reduced it to 10% only. Of course, government got a lot of money in this. That is the reason they were looking at this as an opportunity. So now the question comes up is that whether this particular provision, whether it is valid at all. Let's look at some issues. First of all, the validity of 36(4) has been challenged in the Gujarat High Court, which has been admitted. Now the matter is pending for decision as far as the Gujarat High Court is concerned. Pending that, what are the important grounds which has been there? Yes, which has also been taken in Gujarat writ which has been filed on the constitutional validity. One is that this 36(4) was bought along with section 43A because there has to be an enabling provision. So the 43A gave the procedure for furnishing the returns and availing the credit, but even now the 43A has not been made effective. But the rule made under 43A, which is 36(4), is been given effect to. So can this rule where the provision was not been made given effect to, whether it can be a valid rule at all, because the section itself is not operating. Now the question comes up is, can I go back and do this per the section operative? A notification, can it be issued by CBEC saying that it is effective from 1st of October and this ground can be taken away? This is the same technical challenge we had for section 50 also. That is the interest, where they told no, it is prospective. So they cannot take a different footing. For interest, retrospective is not possible, I'll give prospective. For 43A, no, I can also go retrospective and make it retrospective. That will not happen. So that is something which you have to be clear on. Next is you have the Global Energy Limited, where the rule making power things have been looked at. That is what I was just talking to. Cannot be exercised and cannot be bring into the substantial rights and obligations which is not contemplated in the provision. So rule cannot override the section. So this is something which is been already echoed in Sriram Supreme Court case also. Another interesting thing which has to be looked at is Dairchi Karkaria, which is a Supreme Court decision, which says the credit is an indefensible right. So this Dairchi Karkaria comes in various ITC credit issues, including the time limit. It says it's your vested right that cannot be taken away by doing this procedural corrections. That is what is coming. And the similar provision also existed in various VAT laws, Delhi VAT laws, the Telangana, AP, Tamil Nadu, everywhere this particular thing was there. And there are a number of decisions which says that even under VAT, if you cannot be held responsible if your vendor has not paid the tax. So it has to be recovered from the vendor is something which has to be looked at. The other thing which comes up is that whether I can fulfill an impossible condition. So this is a famous legal magazine. Let's not call it ad impossibilia. Impossibilia. So this says that something which is impossible need not be performed. Now, is it possible for me to go and file the GSTR one of my client? Answer is no. So it is something which is over my control. It is something my vendor only has to do. So how can you enforce that? Second, the 16(4), when the eligibility of credit, not 16(4), section 16, when it talks about the eligibility of credit, it says it has to be paid by the vendor. But how will you ensure the returns has been failed, it has been paid by the vendor? So it is very difficult. Only if it is coming under GSTR 2A, is it conclusive evidence my vendor has been filed? Answer is no. As long as file GSTR 1, I am not filing 3B, I have not paid the tax. So GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, both acknowledgement, I will take it together. So when I am taking both acknowledgement together, is it possible for me to look at having this, I'm sorry. So when I look at having this, I'm sorry, I lost it. Just I'll take a second. If I take the acknowledgement of GSTR 1 and I take the acknowledgement of GSTR 3B, is it possible for me to say that he has paid the tax? Answer is again no, because you don't even know what is the amount declared in 1 and what is the amount which has been paid in 3B. There could be a difference, and even amount is matching, whether your invoice was included in the computation or not, it is not possible. So this is something which is an impossible condition which cannot be fulfilled. GST council meeting also says that you have to go to the supplier first. Only in case he is not traceable or you are not able to recover the money, then only come to the recipient and ask this particular money. So this is what has been told and echoed in various decisions. So thereby, it is important that whenever you are getting a notice saying that it is not part of your 2A or it is part of the 2A, but you prove the vendor has paid the tax, it is very important for us to take all these issues, all these grounds and fight it out. So these were the few things which practically issues which I was talking about, that I cannot file the GSTR 1. And few practical things which came up was that there was a relaxation which was being given. They told because of COVID pandemic, you need not do this on month up to September 2020. Up to September 2020, from February 2020 to September 2020, this 10% rule can be cumulatively applied. So September 2020 returns becomes very important now, because you have to comply with this rule as exists. Having an option to fight always is there, but you look at where is the deviation. Look it on an cumulative basis. From October to January, so October 2019 to January 2020, will I be able to take the credit? Because this provision came from February 2020. Will I be eligible to take the credit of the old one which has been there now? That is also the due date is 30th of September, which you will be able to take the credit. So that will not come within the 2A, that you will be able to go ahead and take the credit. So vendors which has not been uploaded, their 3B, we have where we have filed the GST or September 3B. So there you could look at either reversing the ITC under protest or going for for fighting of the case. Interest applicability of ITC claim during the or September 3B, if you are claiming any excess because of the markup, that is February to March, you did not give a care to this particular rule of 10%, and you went ahead for going with taking full credit. However, when you do this cumulative basis computation as on 30th September, is it possible for us to look at, if there is an excess of credit which you have taken, which requires a reversal, which you are reversing, interest should be paid from September month returns or from February, March, April respectively, where the excess has happened. So in my view, it should be only from the September month. So this is also another issue which comes up very shortly. Meanwhile, they have also introduced a new form which is called as a GSTR 2B. What is the difference between GSTR 2B and 2A is something which this table gives you. 2B is static, which gives the cutoff date, the monthly, and anybody who has filed their GSTR once, my vendors, that only is going to come as far as the 2A, 2B is concerned. As far as 2A, it's a dynamic. Every day, every moment. Now, if you check your 2A and after 1 hour, if you check, if one of your vendors have uploaded the GSTR1, your 2A is going to change. So it's a dynamic cumulative figure, but 2B is static. So up to 11th of that particular month, whatever is coming, only that would be recorded, not beyond that. That is the cutoff date. And entries of in 2B will not come from your TDS and TCS returns. That is not going to come. Whereas in 2A, it is going to consider even your credit from TDS and TCS returns also. So that is another difference. And this will be useful for that 36-4 reconciliation for you to identify who are the persons who have not filed. You can follow up so that you will be able to take the credit in the next month. So here in 2A, it is not possible for 36-4 compliance, but it gives you an overall picture as on that accumulated cumulative effort as on that particular date. That is where you will be able to look at your 2A reconciliation. Online portal has various features listed subsequently, which is not available as far as 2A is concerned. So these are the few issues which comes as far as 36-4 is concerned. So the next issue which I'll be taking you through is 86A. So what is this 86A? You have to look at it very carefully, which is a very, very dangerous section which they have given, which pertains to blocking of your ITC credit ledger, electronic credit ledger blocking. Provision is being given, the powers has been given to Assistant Commissioner. This is a very dangerous provision and harassment tool, I can say, if at all the department officer has to harass you. So what this provision says, the salient features is that if you have found that if the AC has a reason to believe that the vendor has not been found, has been found a non-existence, he is not able to find the vendor, or he is not able to find the recipient, or vendor is not conducting any business from the place where he has obtained the registration, or recipient is not conducting the business from where he has taken the registration, has taken the credit without receipt of goods, tax charge has not been paid to the government. Again, I am saying it's an impossible condition. How are you going to prove? Third one, not in possession of tax invoice or any other document. In such a case, the credit can be blocked for a period which will extend up to 1 year. Only on the satisfaction, I call it as a discretionary because it says satisfaction of the officer, then the credit register can be unblocked. Now look at the provision. First one is okay. Vendor is not existence. You are not able to trace the vendor on which I have taken the credit. Fair enough. You can block the credit. Or I myself am a bogus entity. I am absconding. You block my credit. That is also okay because the credit is laying. I should not further misuse because I am not traceable to you. This is also fair enough. First point is totally fair enough. You look at the second one, how dangerous it is. We have been often seen this. There has been a common practice, especially in state tax officer. I was doing my business in an X location. Now I have relocated my office from X location to Y location. That X location, I'm still keeping. It's my own property. One small board is there. I'm still keeping that, but I've leased out the premises and all those things. A board is there, address is there. Because that address, various places I would have given, I am retaining the address. Whenever I want to transfer the registration from that particular location to the new location where I am actually operating, it is very difficult for us to get the transfer done, because the officer always says, sir, I am there now, sir. I will take care. Why unnecessary you will transfer? Nothing is going to happen. I am going to take care. Don't change the registration, he says. Now this is there for both vendor and recipient. Now for whatever reason you have yielded for this particular request and you have considered it, this provision says that if you are not in the place, you are not conducting the business where you have taken a registration, the credit can be blocked. Either you or your vendor. See how complication it could be there. Next is without receipt of goods or services. This is also fair enough. If you have not received the goods or services, don't give him the credit. But how will I prove the receipt of goods? Very important. How will I prove the receipt of goods? Common people will say, sir, I have an e-way bill. What else you want? Sir, e-way bill will not prove that the goods has been received. E-way bill is only a document which has been generated. Unless until you have an authentication that it was checked during the transit, you can prove that the goods were transferred. There was a transit because somebody in between have checked. But only because it has been transited, it doesn't mean that you have received it. There could be a possibility somebody else could have received, or whatever could have been happened of it. But it is not an evidence that you have received the goods. Okay, sir, what I will give? I will give my DC, where there will be an inward seal. Okay, sir, DC is your internal document. It is not a third-party evidence. They will not take that. Sir, I have payment proof, sir. I will show bank details. That gives the payment proof. It will not give you the receipt of goods. Think about it. So, how will I prove the receipt of goods? In my view, the receipt of goods can be claimed, can be showed through your LR, where your transporter is confirming the receipt of the goods. The LR copy, there will be a received signature done by your security or a store's in charge. And if you can get hold of that copy and a statement from the transporter, then this is one evidence. Second is that weighment slip. Again, the third party weighment slip near my factory. Many cases what happens is that before the goods has been inward, they will take this weighment slip. So weighment slip, LR, e-way bill, invoice, payment proof, your own DC, all together conclusively you can prove that the goods have been received. Many of the corporate organization, they are also taking photos of the goods which is inward, whatever the goods has been inward, they are taking a photos because anyway there is a CC cam which has been attached, especially a large one truck material has been coming, including the truck number and the goods in that, they are taking a photo and preserving it, because it is very difficult for us to prove the receipt of goods. Because of this, all this evidence, if you are having, it will be handy. All this is good, Sudhir, but how are you going to prove receipt of service? Now, I say, for example, this was a paid professional webinar, and you guys have logged in from various locations. I am sitting in somewhere, and I have given this particular webinar, and money has been collected. So, how will you prove that you have taken my service? Okay, Venkatesh sir will say, Venkatesh sir, Sudhir sir, I am having recording. This recording I will show, sir, that I have taken this service or from you, I will show the recording. But what if you call me over phone? How will I prove that this service has been given? What if I have given only a written opinion? If I have not given a written opinion, I have given an oral consultancy. You drop into my office, take an oral consultancy and go. How are you going to receive this, prove the receipt of service? This is again very difficult. Again, impossible condition need not be fulfilled. This has to be kept in mind. Then another thing is that charge in respect of this has been paid to the government. This I have sufficiently discussed. This is also an impossible condition. You will not be able to prove. You should be possessing in tax invoice. Fair enough. You give the invoice copies. Wherever you are not able to source the original, at least if you can get a endorsed copy from your vendor, that should be sufficient for you to prove. But see how this can give a big tool for the officer to block the credit. All that he will come to your premises, he will say that you have taken a credit of say 1 crore rupees, which is coming to 2,500 documents. He says submit a copy of all 2,500 documents, and you prove out of these 2,500 documents may be coming from 500, 600 vendors. He says give me the acknowledgement of all 500 and 600 vendors that they have paid the tax, and you prove that these people are available doing business in their location. Only when you do all those things, I am going to release this particular credit, blocking of the credit. So see how dangerous this could be there. So one has to be very careful on this particular thing. So the essential is the assistant commissioner or above rank only can do this blocking of the credit, and there should be a reason to believe that there is a fraudulent transaction. Whatever the things which I told, it's ineligible credit because of the fraudulent meals as specified in the reasons above. Only dispute the credit to be, only disputed credit only can be blocked. The entire credit cannot be there. So blockade period will be 1 year. So whatever he feels, okay, this party vendor is there, that only can be blocked. He cannot make an open statement, but there is a chance that that sort of a notice could be coming. You have to be very careful. Reasons to believe is something very important for us to look at. Belief may be substantive, but reason is objective. So belief is subjective. Reason is has to be a reason, proper reason to believe. There has to be an objective for it. So there has to be a rationale when you are collecting the relevant to having the formation of the belief. So there has to be some documentation, and there is also a stronger than if he is satisfied. Reason to believe is only a belief for reason. I don't know what is the background of it, but satisfied, I have to satisfied with the documentary evidence. So these are the few things which has to be get into, and we have to look at whether this entire provision itself will stand the judicial scrutiny. And the other thing is that this has been inserted as a part of a payment. Sub-conditions as may be prescribed has been given, but there is no again rules made as a payment condition. It is only a eligibility of taking condition which has been there. Then the provisional attachment also could be looked at when this particular credit blocking has been happening. Then there are certain...
Susan,
Yes,
just
sir.
a second.
Ah.
I request to one and all, the viewers having any doubts on the session, please ask your queries after completion of speakers or task. And one more, there is option in our participants tool, hand raise option is available. Please raise your hands after completion of the speakers or task. Thank you. Sir, please carry on.
Thank you, sir. You can put all your questions. I am able to see few questions in the chat box also. I'll be answering all those questions. So, one of the conditions of section 16 is also talks about subject to 41 and 43A. 43A is that 10% restriction which I was talking about. You will be able to get only when it is actually paid to the government. So I have already talked about it. A lot of technical difficulties you will not be able to do. These are various case laws which I have listed, which could be handy for you to develop, to have this case laws handy with you to fight out the notice where they are telling that I will not give the credit because not there in 2A, or you have to prove the payment is not been paid. I am going to block your credit, not allow your credit. You can be looking at. So Mr. Prakash is asking whether the PPT will be shared. I will be giving this copy to Kumar Garuk, the president and the organizers, and I don't reserve any copyright on this. So it is easily, it is circulated. It can be circulated. I don't have any challenge in that. So these case laws, you will be able to look into it. So these are the things which I have already mentioned, that GST credit is an indivisible credit, has been already held in Eicher Motors. So I'm not just going into this particular provisions because I've already discussed that, not that I'm skipping. Then is reply to the notice for section 16.4. So what is 16.4? 16.4 is a time limit for taking the credit. It says, when can I take the credit? The credit can be taken only when you will be able to, only within the time limit specified. So in Central Excise, they are told that you could take the credit within 1 year from the date of invoice, 6 months and 1 year they had later amended it. But in GST, what they say is for the entire financial year, say 1920, either it is April 2019 invoice or March 2020 invoice, the last date for you to take the credit is 30th September 2019 or filing of annual returns, whichever is earlier. For a moment, we can forget about filing of annual returns because I don't see any logic that anybody would have gone and filed the annual returns before September, because September allows you to do a lot of rectification. So only after September only the annual returns has been filed. So more or less for logically, practically, we will think September is the last date for taking the credit. Now, what if I have not taken the credit on September? A. B. So they have taken the credit in the September month. I was supposed to file the returns on 20th of October 2020. But instead of filing in October 2020, I will defer it. I will again do a thorough scrutiny. I will keep these returns open as is only till December 2020. And December 2020, I'll take the credit. Well, whether it will be a valid. Here you have to look at 16.4 is clearly saying that you should be having the time limit of taking credit is not September month. It says the due date for filing the returns of the September 2020. So that is 20th October is a static date. So if you have delayedly filed the returns, then you will not be eligible to take the credit. This is the department. My view is that if the returns has been assessed late, it doesn't mean that I have availed the credit also late. So it is only a procedural lapse which should not take away the substantial benefit given to me under the law. So this is something which we have to consider when we are looking at 16.4. Few things which we need to look at is that first you check the DIN number. So what is DIN number is document identification number, not director identification number as per your Companies Act. When I am talking about DIN, I am talking about a DIN for the purpose of the CBIC. There was a lot of challenges where the director identification, the documents were given by the officers which were not being tracked. To track that, every officer issuing a document, he has to affix a DIN so that it gets tracked till its logical end. Two ways of looking at it. If one DIN is there, then nothing can be done. No question of dropping, only substantial evidence, then only it can be dropped. Second is that without DIN, there could be a chance that the department is just taking a chance. It may be an unofficial document. So don't go for replying if there is no DIN. Insist for a DIN so that it becomes official. Many of the cases where we have seen when we have insisted for DIN, the second letter or the third letter never came. The moment you looked at it, because it was totally an unofficial or phishing which was being done by the department. So that is the reason DIN is very important, considering this only government has introduced DIN. So you should also insist as a DIN, as a recipient, as an assessee, and as a consultant, you have to advise your assessee. So whether it will be violating my 16.4, 19.1, the equality and things like that is something which can be looked at as far as the time limit is concerned. No person should be deprived of his property. So ITC is an asset, it's a property of a person. It cannot be deprived because of a particular time limit. So that is something which is another thing which could be looked at. If you look at the statement of objective and reasoning when the GST law was introduced, it says that the GST law was introduced to remove the cascading effect of the tax. So now if you are not giving GST ITC credit, then there is, because of the time limit, then the cascading continues. Then what is the basic intention of it? I already discussed Daiichi Karkaria, Eicher Motors. ITC is a right, it cannot be taken away. So these are all the grounds which you will be able to file for the time limit. That is, if you have not taken the credit for 18-19 financial year, most of the people would be doing your GST and 9 returns. If you are also a chartered accountant or a cost accountant, you will also be working under 9C. You will identify the client has not taken credit. How can I help him? So this is something which is the grounds. So wherever it is beyond the due date, what you could consider is you could take the credit, you could reverse the credit and ask for the reinstatement of credit. This is something which could be looked at. Second is if something, a risk has to be taken, it can be taken now. with a due intimation to the department with all these grounds saying that I should be eligible for the credit. If credit is substantial, you can go to the High Court and get a specific writ of mandamus for allowing them to take the credit based on this ground. But all these grounds is not something which gets settled at the department. You should be ready to fight up to the High Court. So based on that only, you have to recommend these things to the court. My idea is to give a different thought process that what is possible beyond what is there in the books. That is the idea of me giving you this particular idea. Next is the contrary view is that ITC is a conditional right. This is what the department is saying. So all these conditions is okay, is what they are talking about. So next one comes is that detention of the vehicles in case of e-invoicing, in case of e-way bill. So whether the detention can be done, there is an appellate authority which says that if it is an irregular e-way bill, maximum you have to take a penalty of 10,000 rupees. You cannot ask them to pay the entire 100% of tax with equal penalty. It amounts to double taxation because already invoice has been raised. So these are the provisions which needs to be considered. So again, these are all the grounds which you will be able to fight it out. Few case laws are there because I'll be circulating this slide. I'll not be going through this case laws in depth. All these things are self-explanatory. You could be looking at. Then you have some recent developments of the High Court proceedings. One is that Order 83, which is a provisional attachment. It says it is only to protect the revenue interest and not to ruin the taxpayer business. Please see how the judiciaries are looking at it. So you cannot ruin the taxpayer business. So wherever there is a doubt, you cannot attach. So these are the things which you will be able to look at some particular case laws. Pitambar Books Private Limited, the refund cannot be denied for any of the lapse. That is what this is between the two different financial year. There was a circular which says that even beyond the 2 financial year also you'll be able to take. System did not allow. So this is the Pitambar books which allowed the credit thereafter. If the invoice is rejected, then the credit has to be reinstated. Then the next issue comes up is that the GST on canteen recovery from the employees. So what happens to the canteen recovery of employees on employee recovery? So why is this issue coming is that any service provided by employee to employer is exempted. But what happens to service provided by employer to employer? Taxable. Now the question is that when I am giving a meal free of cost or at a nominal value, am I providing the supply of that food to my employees? So this is something which is again having something to be disputed. There are advance ruling which confirms that yes, it has to be paid. But if you deep down into it, if it is a part of a wage settlement, the wage includes the concessional food which has been given to them. So whatever you are recovering, it is only a settlement of their salary. If this is can be looked at, it is a part of their CTC. The concession what you are giving is a part of the salary what you are paid to them. This is how your employment contract says. Then you will be eligible to, you will not be liable to pay the tax on that. So of course you will not be eligible to take the ITC because you are not paying on the output. So that is something that has to be looked at, and food is specifically restricted. But advance ruling is different. Then comes is the what will happen to the ITC on the gift. So if you look at 17.5, which is a blocked credit, it says gift disposed of or given away as free sample will not be eligible for taking the credit. The issue comes up is that if you had looked up various options, the gift packs and something, either it could be a 1+1 free offer, or they'll say that you take a coffee powder, I'll give you a steel tumbler free. So that is what they are going to advertise or give it as a bundle. So whether that also becomes a gift, as long as the cost of that is embedded in the product, it cannot be called as a gift. It will be only a bundle of service or a composite supply which has been given. Thereby you should be eligible for the credit. So there is also a circular on this 1+1 scheme. I have referred the circular here. You could go through that, and they say you will be eligible for the credit. Again, there is a contrary advance ruling which says in case of Surfa Courts Limited, whatever the dealer incentives which has been given, whatever TV, gold coins or foreign trip, they are saying it is not eligible. But here also my view is that gift is something which is given free of cost without expecting anything. Once there is a monetary aspect to it, it is not given just like that. It has been given because of a condition. Then it should be eligible for the credit. So this is also something which you will be able to find it. GST on notice pay recovery. So I'm not sure if many of you are handling this situation. There is an employee which he has to give a 3 months notice. He has got a better employment elsewhere. So he is okay to reduce his recover his 1 month or 2 months salary. In which case that recovery, whether it is a supply done by an employer to employee. Here there are decisions which says G, T and D, which says that this is nothing to do with the supply which has been given. So thereby it should not be subjected to GST. But these are the few things which department are insisting for paying the tax. Again, the other issue comes up is the GST on ocean freight. So ocean freight, Mohit Minerals has settled the issue saying that reverse charge is not going to applicable. However, if CHA is paying, aircraft is exempted. If it is vessels on the import, RCM will be applicable. Export, again, outgoing freight, the place of supply will be abroad. So thereby it becomes exempted. Same is for the shipper line which is located outside also. This is also something which will be coming up for your GST or 18-19 returns, where ITC credit availed instead of CGST and SGST. So this is a common error which happens. So that can be adjusted in your subsequent 3B returns. You can take the credit of that and reverse the credit of the one credit which is not eligible to be taken. That is how the circular says. Similar thing is when you also make an erroneous payment, instead of paying I, you pay C plus S. That is how you will be able to tackle that also. So that is on the other issues. Some professional approach to look at prevention of errors. Thorough knowledge of the law is very, very important. Gone are those days of sales tax practice or the VAT practice used to be there, more of an assessment model where the relationship would have been counted. Now all those things are going away. It is only based on the thorough knowledge of the law. Even a small mistake under a law can cost big. So we as a professional has to be having a thorough knowledge of the law. And I'm very happy that your association, AP Tax Bar, is conducting such a sort of a knowledge dissemination seminars. So this is need of the hour. There is also sometimes I feel few people complaining, what is this, Sudhir? Nowadays too many webinars. Every day there is a webinar. So a lot of things, it's too much. I don't feel it's too much. It will be too much if the same subject is repeated again and again. If you are picking a different subject, even one full day, if you are spending on the knowledge updating, that is going to be looked at. I was recently reading one of the books of Robin Sharma, where he says that one of the success for professional is that you have to be a 60-minute student. So every day you have to be a 60-minute student. You forget that you are a top advocate of advocate representing in High Court. You are a top chartered accountant, top consultant. Forget about it. 160 minutes come into a student mode. Yes, student is throughout. We have to be student throughout as a learning. But that dedicated 60 minutes, you will not think anything other than you being a student, reading and updating your knowledge, which is very essential for us as a professional, which we need to do. Sincere efforts to comply, legally compliant. So many of the cases, clients wants to take some deviation, wants to take the shortcut. Gone are those days. Nowadays, because of the technology, everything is getting linked. Evasion is becoming very, very difficult. So yeah, of course, the people from my mindset, that is what we'll say. But there are other people also says that lot of avenues. So, but look at the avenues where you have to be a legally compliant and see whether the business has been safeguarded, because the taxes demand will be huge here. Have a strong internal control, have a strong effective internal audit or a review of the transaction, quarterly review, monthly review, recommend to your client. You prepare your own checklist, what needs to be prepared, quarterly, off yearly, pre-closing of the books of accounts, do a review, rectify all the errors. Your rectification is going to cost less. Department rectification is going to cost more. So thereby prevention is better than cure. This is something which you have to look at. Regularly take the written consultation to confirm the view. Many of the cases, the client tends to take a oral consultancy. Ask them to take a written, because something facts when it has been written, what has been told orally and what has been written, there could be having a challenge. Look at the documents, look at the written query, and thereby give your consultation. Otherwise, sir, sir, I told you on that day, this is what I told you. Then you also don't remember. Client also don't remember. But client has taken some step and he will always want to blame you. So please be clear, because GST is very, very complicated and changing law. Take everything in writing and give everything in writing. Take the ultimate, whatever the things is there for utilization and implementing it. So next is mitigation of dispute, section 73.5 and 73.8. 73.5, it says that if you are paying the tax before issuing the show cause notice along with the interest, no notice can be given. 73.8 also says that if you are paying within 30 days, notice can be given. So might as well take the notice and pay within 30 days, because if there is an interpretational issue, you can at least fight it out. An order has to be passed. It is an appealable order. If you are losing, nothing more to lose, because you already paid within 30 days. So this is something could be looked at. Recently, there was a decision of Kerala High Court in case they say that you cannot opt for both. So that was there in 74, not under 73. So 74, if you are taking an order and within 30 days you are paying, then you have to pay a penalty of 10% extra. Under 74, that is a fraud, collusion, misrepresentation, you have to pay 15% before issuing show cause notice to conclude it. If you want to take a show cause notice, you have to pay 25% after that. After order, you want to settle it, is 50%. So that is more of 74 and not for 73. This is something which you could take. Cost benefit analysis before taking the action, passing on ITC. That is something you could look at. Effective written correspondence as a first point of escalation. That is what written. Lot of things, if you are asking in writing, gets diluted. Something could be looked at. Use RTI, Right to Information Act. Especially that reason to believe and all. Right under RTI, say that what is the reason you have believed, give me the copy of your file. So a lot of mischief, if at all department has to play, any of the officer in personal want to pay, not the entire department. I don't want to blame. One or two bad crooks, if they want to play something. So this could be a check against them. So something could be looked at. Representation is very important. So represent it to the higher officer, GST council, government, wherever it is possible. Many of the things is there. Who is going to claim? I am a small AP Tax Bar Association. My representation, who is going to look at? Don't look at. People are very serious there. You put your efforts, and thereafter result has to be left it. So don't prejudge the result. Make your efforts. Give a representation. I have seen many registered post representations have been filed and that have worked. So that is something which you have to look at. Effective use of writ remedies also could be looked at. Not when there is an alternative options available, you could look at as a writ remedies. So these are the things where you could mitigate some disputes and do it. So this completes my talk, and if chairman has joined, he can give his remarks, then we can go to the questions, or I can take the questions. I'll leave it to President Kumar Garu for how to take it forward. So thank you all for having a patience listening. I thank AP Tax Bar, the president and entire organizing committee for giving me a chance for being here and share my thoughts. Thank you all.
The chairman has joined us, Venkatesh. Venkatesh.
Sir, chairman, sir, not joined, sir.
Okay, some questions have been forwarded by the members. Sir Sudhir, can you please answer them?
Sure, I'll do that. Let me stop sharing the screen.
I'll give my conclusions at the end.
Sure. So Anil is saying that taxpayer has filed GSTR 1 mentioning wrong GSTN of the buyer. Accordingly, eligible buyer not able to see the details in this GSTR 2A. And the same is showing in 2A of the taxpayer whose GSTN is wrongly mentioned. Now guide me how to correct the same, as the law does not allow beyond September 2019, which is what is your suggestion for the future? Very, very good question, I can say, practical question. I'm repeating the scenario again. There is a vendor of mine, instead of quoting my GSTN number, he has quoted Kumar Garu's registration number. I am not eligible to take the credit now because it is not part of my 2A. So here for 18-19 financial year, as I made it clear, 2A credit is not required. As long as you have a valid invoice, in the invoice proper GSTN number is there, then you can go ahead and take the credit if all other condition has been satisfied. Nothing to worry. But I will answer this question, what will happen to 2021 financial year, because anyway 2021 you are having that 36.4 and things like that. What is going to happen there? So there you have to make a representation to the department and say that for the next financial year, what you have to do now for 1920 financial year is that you have to make a thorough reconciliation of your ITC taken versus your 3B, 2A versus 3B reconciliation. You have to do it today and look at all the vendors where it is not happened, write to them before 20th of October, and any such errors is there, ensure the vendor is going to rectify it. Otherwise, you tell the vendor that I am not going to pay because I told you to rectify before 20th October, you have not done that. Now, if I am negligent, I am also passing October, then I feel that still you should be eligible to take the credit by making a simple letter. And most importantly, Kumar Garu has to note in the example what I am saying, not Kumar Garu personal, the example Kumar Garu is that because it has come in 2A, he cannot take the credit. Because he is not the recipient of the service, he is not paid for it, he should not take the credit. So this error is also happening. So there are some other vendor, instead of mentioning some other client, my GSTN is there. People are taking that credit. Please don't take that credit, that is also ineligible. Only because it is coming in your 2A also, you are not eligible for the credit. So rectification is the only option. If the rectification is not there, then nothing can be done. For 18-19 financial year, as a matter of abundant caution, take a declaration from the vendor that this was the error happened. Screenshot of his GSTR1 can be taken. Certificate from his chartered accountant saying that this amount has been remitted to the credit of the government. With this, you intimate to department and take the credit. You should be eligible for credit, in my view. Shailekari Gadag from Gadag, he says, one of my client not filed GSTR 9 and 9C for 17-18. What will be the late filing fee? Please let me know. So that GSTR 9, 200 rupees per day, but shall not exceed 0.5% of your turnover. So that is for 9 and 9C, 25,000 penalty is going to be there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. KMR Garu is asking, state authorities not taken into consideration DIN system. Why, sir? I am also of the same question. I am with you. State government, it is 200% required than central government. But somehow it is a government policy. Each state to state they have to take some best governance, whichever states are there, they have to look at. Now, as of now, it's not there. So it makes sense from the AP tax bar that both the Telugu speaking states, the Telangana and the Andhra, it would be good idea to meet the principal secretary and the commissioner, because beyond the commissioner, the principal secretary is something which is powerful. Meet them, tell what are the challenges which has been faced. No complaint against any officer, but you tell as a best governance, please implement DIN system in state government also is something you could be looking at. Really, I'm not very sure about the reason why they don't want to implement it. Rajesh Babu Garu is saying, if we availed ITC wrongly in earlier months and the same is reversing in the current month, please clarify the interest is applicable to be paid for availing the ineligible credit, even our ITC is laying in our credit ledger. So his scenario is like this. I had 1 lakh rupees of credit in my ITC in the month of July, August, September. In September month, I identified at 10,000 rupees of credit I was ineligible to take. It was a blocked credit which I was not eligible. So in September month or October month, I am reversing it. So, but I have never utilized it. 1 lakh closing balance was there throughout. Only 10,000 I am reversing. Still 90,000 is eligible credit. Should I pay interest? As per my view, no, interest is not applicable. However, penalty could be applicable, but not the interest in my view. But the department is of the view, the moment you have taken the credit, you have to pay. That can be fighted out. Recently, GST authority is sending SMS to dealer asking for the payment of interest liability on net cash without any calculation sheet. How to respond, sir? As I have told, ask them for giving in writing. One, before going into this, log into your GSTN portal, look at if there is any notices which has been issued. So one of the modes of issuing show cause notice is pushing into your portal. Email ID check what is the email ID you are given at the time of registration. At email ID portal you check. There could be a chance that there is going to be a notice which is issued which you are not responding, and that is the reason they are looking at an SMS. Ask for a document, visit them, ask for a document, take a copy of it, and net interest liability as per me cannot be contested, that has to be paid. So you can pay and close the issue is what I suggest. MVL Garu is saying, while reconciliation of Form 9C, mismatch of ITC 2A, that the same is reversal with interest 18%, is it correct? And other conditions are fulfilled. As per me, that if it is only mismatching of 2A for 18-19 financial year, don't worry, please go ahead and take the credit. If at all there is a notice, you have sufficient grounds to take the credit. However, if you feel, Sudhir Garu, it's very a small amount, some 2,000, 4,000, 5,000, our fees also will not be recovered if we are asking client to fight. So in such case, 18% interest is the correct rate of interest. You have to reverse it with 18% interest. Sir, your reply is well appreciated. Anil Garu is telling your reply is well appreciated. Please let me know 36(4) limitation was not in 18-19, hence 2A was not applicable. What about in 1920? So 1920 also I have told there are certain grounds. There is constitutional validity of has been challenged in Gujarat High Court. 43A has not been given effect to. There are various grounds, but it all depends upon the risk appetite of your client. So if the client doesn't want to take the risk, please use the GSTR 2B format which has been available. Add maximum only up to 10% of the 2B, and that you will be eligible to take the credit, and have a month-on-month reconciliation for that. That is something which you could look at. In annual return, 8A column figure and invoice wise list is not matching. What to do? KMR Garu. So what is this 8A says? 1 minute, I'll just refer. KMR Garu, can you unmute and speak on this? (8A) talks about details of other inward supplies for the financial year. That is not matching with
KMR Garu.
Annual returns column figure and invoices wise list are not matching. What to do? So you have to actually look at what is the actual, and the actual one has to be taken in GSTR 9. So that is what I can say. So I think I have completed all the questions. If any further questions is there, I am free to take. And thank you for all the appreciations which has been given in the chat box. Really pleasure being here. Thank you, Srinivas Garu.
Sir, good afternoon, Andy.
Good afternoon, sir. Cheppandi.
Na peru Rajesh. వైజాగ్ నుంచి. సార్ అంటే వన్ ఆఫ్ అవర్ క్లయింట్ ఈజ్
రాజేష్ గారు, గో అహెడ్.
మా క్లయింట్ ఒకరు ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ లో ఉన్నారండి. ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఇండస్ట్రీ షింప్ ప్రాసెస్ చేసి ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ చేస్తున్నారు.
అవును సార్.
ఈవెన్ వాళ్ళకి ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ తో పాటు ఫీడ్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ కూడా ఉంది యూనిట్.
అవును సార్, ప్రాసెసింగ్ యూనిట్.
ప్రాసెసింగ్ ఫీడ్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్
సీడ్ ఓకే.
ఫీడ్ సార్, ఫీడ్.
ఓకే, సీడ్ ప్రాసెసింగ్. ఓకే, చెప్పండి.
షింప్ ఫీడ్.
ఫీడ్ ఓకే.
ఎగ్జామ్టెడ్ ప్రోడక్ట్. ఓకే. సో సమ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఫీడ్ ప్రోడక్ట్ ఏంటంటే క్యాప్టివ్ కన్సంప్షన్ చేస్తున్నారు ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ కి.
అవును సార్.
ఆ షింప్ కి.
అవును సార్.
సో ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఏదైతే క్యాప్టివ్ కన్సంప్షన్ చేస్తున్నారో ఆ పార్ట్ ఐటీసీ వీళ్ళు డివైడ్ చేయలేని పరిస్థితిలో ఉన్నారు.
ఓకే సార్.
సో ఈ ఫీడ్ మీద ఏదైతే మన ఐటీసీ మనం పర్చేస్ చేసేటప్పుడు వచ్చే ఐటీసీ అది అవైల్ చేసుకోవచ్చా సార్?
తీసుకునొచ్చు సార్. One way of looking at is that you could look at the quantity of your captive consumption vis-a-vis the outside sale. Outside sale ది దొరకదు, ఎందుకంటే exempted product కాబట్టి. Captive consumption అయ్యింది because it is for exports కాబట్టి you will be eligible for credit. Actual quantity wise మీరు bifurcate చేయలేకపోతున్నారంటే you can apply the formula given under rule 42 and you will be eligible for the refund of the balance credit which is laying in your books.
సో ఎగ్జామ్టెడ్ టర్న్ ఓవర్ అది ఎంతైతే ఉందో ఆ రేషియో ప్రకారం మనం ఇనెలిజిబుల్ చేయాలంటారు. సార్
అంతే.
యాక్చువల్లీ అంటే ఇది లాలో చాలా వెతికారు కానీ ఎక్కడ దొరకలేదు సార్. ఇది క్యాపిటల్ కన్సంప్షన్ మీద ఐటీసీ అవైల్ చేసుకోవచ్చు ఫీడ్ ఎగ్జామ్టెడ్ ప్రోడక్ట్.
సార్ దాంట్లో ఇది సెటిల్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ అండర్ సెంట్రల్ ఎక్సైజ్ సార్ అది. If you can just write me a mail, I can compile for few case laws and send. Central excise law, it is a settled principle of law that end product, if it is taxable, intermediary exempted, the credit should not be denied.
ఓకే. ఇప్పుడు ఈ ఎగ్జామ్టెడ్ ప్రోడక్ట్ ఏదైతే ఉందో ఫీడ్ అది ఎంటైర్లీ డొమెస్టిక్ సేల్స్ చేస్తున్నారు. సమ్ ఆఫ్ ద ఎక్స్టెంట్ ఈ
ఎంటైర్ డొమెస్టిక్ సేల్ చేస్తే దానికి సంబంధించిన క్రెడిట్ దొరకదు సార్.
ఎంటైర్ కాదు సార్. సమ్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్రొడక్ట్ ఏంటంటే ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ ఏదైతే షింప్ చేస్తున్నారో దానికి యూటిలైజ్ చేస్తున్నారు క్యాపిటల్ కన్సంప్షన్.
To that extent you will be eligible for credit.
That extent eligible for credit.
అవును.
సో బేస్డ్ ఆన్ టర్నోవర్ రేషియోలో తీసుకోవాలి టాక్సిబుల్ టర్నోవర్.
రూల్ 42 సార్, రూల్ 42 ఫార్ములా అప్లై చేయాలి.
రూల్ 42 అప్లై చేయాలి. అంటే నేను ఒక కేసు చదివానండి, క్యాషియో సిమెంట్స్ అని మీకు ఐడియా ఉంటుంది.
ఏది సార్, ఇంకోసారి చెప్పండి.
క్యాషియో సిమెంట్స్.
కేశవ్ సిమెంట్స్.
రీసెంట్ గా వాళ్ళు అంటే కర్ణాటక గవర్నమెంట్, స్టేట్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఇచ్చింది, అడ్వాన్స్డ్ రూలింగ్ కి వెళ్ళింది.
అవును.
సో వాళ్ళు యాక్చువల్ గా పవర్ ప్లాంట్ కూడా వాళ్ళు ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేశారు.
అవును. ఐ డోంట్ అగ్రీ విత్ దట్ సార్. పవర్ ప్లాంట్ అది క్యాపిటివ్ పవర్ ప్లాంట్ ఉంటే కొంత గ్రిడ్ కమ్ముతున్నారు, కొంత మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ కి వాడుతున్నారు. సిమెంట్ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చరింగ్ కి క్రెడిట్ రాదని చెప్పారు అందులో. సో మై వ్యూ ఇస్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎలిజిబుల్. అడ్వాన్స్ రూలింగ్ ఇస్ నాట్ బైండింగ్ సార్.
లేదు,
మెజారిటీ
వస్తుందని చెప్పారు సార్ ఆ ఏఆర్ లో, అడ్వాన్స్ రూలింగ్ లో.
ఐ థింక్ లేదు సార్, రాదని చెప్పినట్టు గుర్తు నాకు. ఒకసారి చెక్ చేయండి. బట్ ఐఎమ్ ఆఫ్ ద వ్యూ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఎలిజిబుల్. Don't go by advanced ruling. Most of the advanced ruling is not well thought of.
Yeah.
So it is neither way binding on anybody of the ratio itself is also not applicable.
Okay. 2A, Sudhir, 2A of the central excise rules.
2A of central excise.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Sir, namaste. This is KMR.
Yes sir, KMR.
ఇందాక నన్ను రేట్ చేశాయి కదా యాన్యువల్ రిటర్న్ లో 8A గురించి. యాన్యువల్ రిటర్న్ 9 లో 8A కాలంలో మనం ఇన్వాయిసెస్, పర్చేజ్ ఇన్వాయిసెస్ అమౌంట్ మొత్తం సిస్టమ్ ఇస్తుంది ఫిగర్స్.
అది చేంజ్ చేయొచ్చు సార్ మీరు. సిస్టమ్ ఆటో పాపులేట్ చేస్తుంది, బట్ మీరు చేంజ్ చేసే ఆప్షన్ ఉంటుంది.
లేదు నేను అనేది 8A కాలంలో మీరు ఎలిజిబుల్ ఇన్పుట్ ఇది అని చెప్పేసి ఐజిఎస్టీ ఎంత, సిజిఎస్టీ ఎంత అని చెప్పేసి ఇస్తా ఉంది బై డిఫాల్ట్ సిస్టమ్ జనరేటెడ్.
అవును సార్.
దానికి రీసెంట్ గా ఏం చేశారంటే అది ఆ ఫిగర్ ఎలా వచ్చింది అనే దానికి మనకి 8A ఇన్వాయిస్ వైజ్ లిస్ట్ ఒకటి ప్రొవైడ్ చేశారు సిస్టమ్ లో.
అవును.
ఓన్లీ యాన్యువల్ రిటర్న్ కే అప్పుడే వస్తుంది అది. అయితే ఇప్పుడు దాని టోటల్ అమౌంట్ అది ఇన్వాయిస్ వైజ్ వచ్చిన టోటల్ అమౌంట్ ఇక్కడ ఫిగర్ మన సిస్టమ్ అరైవ్ అయిన ఫిగర్ ఒకటే రావాలి కదా.
అవును.
దాని బైఫర్కేషన్ ఇన్వాయిస్ వైజ్ ఇస్తున్నారు.
ఓకే సార్.
ఆ రెండు టాలీ అవ్వట్లేదు. అంటే మనకి ఏమవుతుందంటే మళ్ళీ ఎక్సెస్ తీసుకున్నట్టు అట్లా డిఫరెన్స్ చూపిస్తా ఉంది. దానివల్ల మన ఎక్సెస్ యూటిలైజ్ చేసినట్టు కానీ అట్లా.
అది మనకి ఏటేలో సార్ ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్ చూడండి. ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్ లో ఏం చెప్తున్నాడంటే ఏటేలో అమౌంట్ గెట్స్ పాపులేటెడ్ ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ GSTR 2A అంటది. సో ఇఫ్ ఎనీ ఆఫ్ యువర్ వెండర్ హాస్ నాట్ ఫైల్డ్ ది ఇన్వాయిస్ ఆబ్వియస్లీ ఇట్ విల్ నాట్ కమ్ ఇన్ 2A, ఇట్ విల్ నాట్ కమ్ ఇన్ యువర్ 8.
నేను అనేది ఏంటంటే సరే ఇప్పుడు అక్కడ అమౌంట్ వచ్చింది అంటే వాడు ఇన్వాయిస్ వైజ్ ఇచ్చిన దాని అమౌంట్ ఇది సరిపోవాలి కదా. సపోజ్
ఓకే సార్, నాకు అర్థమైంది. మీరు ఏమంటున్నారంటే ఏలో ఇన్వాయిస్ సమ్మరీకి 8Aకే మ్యాచ్ అవుతలే. ఫర్గెట్ అబౌట్ మై రికార్డ్స్. సారీ సార్, ఇప్పుడు అర్థమైంది మీరు అడుగుతున్నది. అది ఎందుకు అవుతుందంటే 1st November 2019 కట్ ఆఫ్ డేట్ కి అక్కడ జనరేట్ అవుతుంది. మీ అనెక్షర్ ఏదైతే ఉందో సార్ అది డైనమిక్, దట్ విల్ గివ్ యాజ్ ఆఫ్ నౌ. కానీ అక్కడ టేబుల్ లో 8A వస్తుంది కదా సార్, అది స్టాటిక్. దట్ విల్ కమ్ ఓన్లీ యాజ్ ఆఫ్ 1st November 2019 వరకే వస్తుంది అది.
అది అట్లా పెడతారు సార్. అట్లా కనీసం ఏదో రెండు
కంప్లీట్ కేఎంఆర్ గారు, ఐ విల్ కంప్లీట్. రీజన్ ఫర్ డిఫరెన్స్ ఈస్ 8A లో కట్ ఆఫ్ డేట్ హూఎవర్ ఆఫ్ వెండర్స్ హావ్ బీన్ ఫైల్డ్ బిఫోర్ September 19 దాని వరకే కట్ ఆఫ్ చేసి స్టాటిక్ ఫిగర్ పెట్టేశాడు. ఓకే, బట్ మీ అనెక్షర్ ఏదైతే ఉందో అది డైనమిక్. ఈ రోజు ఇప్పుడు ఇంకా ఏదైనా ఒకటి మీరు లేదన్నా మీరు వెండర్ కాల్ చేసి 1 వేయించుకుంటే దట్ ఆల్సో గెట్స్ ఆటో పాపులేటెడ్. సో దీన్ని ఇట్లా చేశారు కాబట్టి టెక్నాలజీ ఇన్స్ట్రక్షన్ లో ఏం చెప్తున్నారంటే ఇలాంటి డిస్క్రిపెన్సీ ఉంటే ఆ టేబుల్ మొత్తం మీరు ఒక ఎక్సెల్ లో వేసేసి దాన్ని PDF కన్వర్ట్ చేసి సెల్ఫ్ అటెస్ట్ చేసేసి మీరు అప్లోడ్ చేయొచ్చు అని చెప్తారు 9C తో పాటు.
డిఫరెన్సెస్ ని మనం ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేస్తాం.
ఐ విల్ నాట్ గో విత్ యువర్ 8A. దిస్ ఇస్ మై టేబుల్ అని చెప్పేసి you can change that and you can upload it.
Okay, thank you very much sir. Thank you.
Ante sir, thank you sir. Sandeep Ahuja garu adugutunnaru, is it compulsory to file GSTR 9 if his client is dealing with exempted goods? As long as you have a registration, GSTR 9 is to be filed. However, it has given an option if your turnover is less than 2 crores. There also don't say if it is less than 2 crores I will not file. Wherever there is a rectification required, 9 is the last opportunity. Take the credit and do it. So there is no specific waiver given if you are into exempted goods. As long as you have a registration, you have to file GSTR 9. Above 2 crores mandatory, below 2 crores recommended. So thank you, sir. I think no more questions.
Sudhir.
Yes, sir.
With regard to the burden of proof,
yes sir,
when we are taking the ITC,
yes sir,
section 165 says,
yes sir,
that the burden should be on the dealer.
Yes sir, recipient dealer,
right? Recipient dealer, where any person claims that he is eligible for input tax credit under this act, the burden of proving such claim shall lie on such person.
Yes
right
sir.
ఇప్పుడు మీరు ఇందాక చెప్పినట్టుగా, సో సపోజ్ ఇఫ్ ది డీలర్ ఫైల్స్ ఆల్ ది మెటీరియల్,
yes sir,
before of course this provision can be challenged before the High Court whenever the situation arises, but
yes,
suppose the documents that you are going to file and prove yourself,
yes sir,
and discharging this ratio that is laid down in this section,
yes sir,
then automatically the burden will shift on the officers.
yes sir.
Okay, if at all, suppose if at all for a moment that the officer does not want to give the ITC to the dealer,
okay,
right, and the officer may say that I am denying your ITC,
Yeah.
For the simple reason that the goods have not been received by you.
Yes.
He don't want to enclose or he don't want to say anything with regard to the documents. But according to me, but that won't suffice the officer to deny the ITC.
Yeah.
The officer should say, though the burden to prove that you have received the goods is on you, the officer should say that there is some information basing upon which he is presuming that the goods have not been received.
Correct.
Information, suppose if that information is provided or not provided by the officer, then certainly you can ask for the information to be provided by the officer. And the officer has to provide all the information, then only the burden will lie upon you to prove that, no, look, these are the goods that have come to my office, and so I have received the goods and my ITC can't be rejected. Ultimately, what I'm saying is, unfortunately, Section 155, by seeing Section 155, it throws the light on the dealer, on the recipient dealer, as if that he has to prove all the things. Right? How can the dealer prove that he has received the goods? By showing the documents. Still, if the officer says that, no, I don't want to see these documents, I want to know, I want to approve to say that the goods have been received by you. What is the proof that we have? Now, before asking us that question, the officer should first discharge his burden, primary burden. Something information.
Why he has a reason to believe that it was not received?
See, that question, reason to believe should be also be satisfied the provision. See, reason to believe should be also be supported by some documentary evidence. Simply, he can't say that in the night I had a dream.
Fair enough.
That now goods have been received by you. In spite of all the documents that are produced by you, I don't want to believe these documents because I have received, I had a dream. So in the dream, these documents are not being received. Sir, somebody is talking in between. In the dream, I have dreamt that the goods have not been received by you. So there is a reason to believe. So I am therefore denying your ITC. That is what even the penalty clause. Sir, some disturbance is there. Sir, who is talking over? Please switch off the mic. So in the penalty clause, Section 82, if I remember correctly, okay, there is a penalty clause. Of course, that clause in the meetings also, in the my article also I have discussed. That clause should be read with the IPC and all. You see, nothing has been written in the GST Act that the commissioner has the powers. It is saying that the commissioner can arrest the dealer, right? But the GST Act is not giving the powers of police.
Correct.
So, like this Central says, a Service Tax Act, the dealer has to, the officers has to launch a complaint before the police, and with the help of the police, they can arrest the person. Of course, Telangana High Court has given an order that has been challenged before the High Court, and the ex-CJI, Ranjan Gogai, His Excellency, is now the governor of the state. And he has given an order saying that that judgment is correct. Later on, a judgment went on from Bombay to the High Court, to the Supreme Court. Then he realized then they realize that, okay, there is something in this judgment. So now they have referred the judgment to full bench. In the meantime, some division benches of the Supreme Court have said that a person can be arrested. So there is a very much discussion on this aspect, and with regarding to between myself and the officers, and also in my article, and also the case laws, and also in some of the where I was the speaker in some of the sessions, I have said that the police, for a reason to believe, the officer can't arrest the person. And I have referred to just some judgments, because in the IPC and CRPC also, it says that not by reason to believe. There should be concrete evidence. There should be concrete evidence to say and to arrest a person. So an affair has to be launched, or at least they should have some concrete evidence by virtue of a reason to believe something fishy is there in the section. Suppose if this section is challenged in the high courts, because in the Telangana High Court, what happened is they have not challenged this section. They have only contested that the person can't be arrested. Section has not been challenged. Reason to believe. What is the meaning of reason to believe? Reason to believe means something arrest. Arrest is nothing but an IPC, which is a criminal offense. And denying an ITC would be leading to double taxation. And in the recent judgment of the Madras High Court, Justice Senthil Kumar has said, no, ITC can't be claimed because it is not a mandate to give ITC. That can't be, because the provision on one hand says that you can claim ITC, okay, and the government is also giving the ITC credit, Tran 1. This is with return to Tran 1, he said. It is a division bench judgment, of course, and he said that no, ITC is not a mandate, it's only a procedural one.
Yes, sir.
So when it is a procedural one, according to him, then there is no necessary for the government to say. Of course, as a counsel arguing for the department, I will argue, saying that some people have not filed within the stipulated time, that is before December 2017, and therefore the ITC can't be claimed. Your claim should be before 2017. So one thing is there is ITC, when the government is trying to give, they can impose certain restrictions. Or, as I said, even before the VAT also, I said to the VAT authorities, remove this ITC business. It is of no use. Impose the tax directly on the seller. For that, there are so many questions that have been posed by the VAT dealers, officers of the state. Likewise, in the GST also, I am saying, recently I had a deliberation with some of the officers and the Chief Commissioner also. I said, why can't we remove to the GST Council to suggest them to remove ITC? And also this reverse charge mechanism. Reverse charge mechanism is creating a lot of havocs, I tell you. Because by virtue of reverse charge mechanism, what is happening is the person who paid the tax is supposed to pay once again, and he will claim the tax, though he is not liable to pay, by way of a reverse charge mechanism. So initially he has to pay the tax, and by way of a reverse charge mechanism, at the end of the year, at the end of the month, he will be claiming the reverse charge, which the officer may give or may not give. So this proposition, reason to believe, has to go.
I agree with you.
There should be a strict compliance of the provisions of the statute to the department also. See,
Completely agree with you, sir. Equality. Both the parties should be treated same.
The doctrine of equality will come into play in this matter. So, if at all, Gujarat, especially in the country, overall the country, you can see from the state of Gujarat, as many number of judgments against these principles, as many judgments against these provisions, and all of them are carried to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court somehow is staying for some time, and somebody is saying that, okay, we will hear the matter. So as a whole, what I see is now only Gujarat High Court is the only court which is giving some relief to the dealers. And the second court will be probably Kerala, and the third one will be the Bombay.
I completely agree with you. So that what you call that judicial shopping, we have the terminology. What is
it? Yeah, definitely.
I think that is what people are now looking at.
Yes, judicial shopping is there, and ultimately the question will launch before the Supreme Court. And what the Supreme Court is going to say, because now it's a $100 million questions, we can't say anything, because I don't want to be in a deep trouble.
Fair enough, sir. I agree with your point. Wonderful. So if no more questions, then we can close it, sir. I have another meeting to catch up.
Yeah, sure. Friends, Sunil, I think that Sunil Kumar has joined us. Sunil?
Sir, very good morning, sir. Sudhir sir, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Sunil garu.
long days onwards again. It's a great pleasure to meet you again once again after the session which you made previously, sir. Very nice of you. Sir, before conclusion, just I would like to have one small query. Like
Sunil, exam alara, sir.
Sir, 1 second. Coming, sir. Coming. According to this October 2019, there is one notification given by the government of India stating that this 3B, GSTR 3B is on basis of retrospective effecting, which the return is going to be valid with the effect from 1/7/2017. According to the provisions of Supreme Court judgment of belongs this negotiable instrumental act, the Supreme Court, Honorary Supreme Court has given a judgment stating that retrospective effect will not be valid. If I am correct, this interest, levying the interest on 3B with effect from 1/7/2017 is valid.
Yes, sir. That there are various occasions in taxation. I'm not aware. I'm not expert on negotiation instrument to do, but
that was a common judgment. That was a common judgment.
I don't know. I've not read that, so I'm not competent to answer that. But in terms of central excise customs, which we have been looked at, when this retrospective was being challenged, it was constitutionally upheld in multiple cases, saying that the law has a power to do a retrospective amendment. The differentiation factor was like, can a retrospective be in an indirect tax amendment? You see how difference is that. In direct tax, I am the person who have earned the income. Income is there still with me. If you are asking still, I only have to give. In indirect tax, somebody has come, say for example, you are a restaurant, somebody came, have a cup of coffee and he has gone. And you did not collect something in 2017. Now you say that you should have collected 50 paisa. Is it possible for me to collect? So whether power is there in indirect tax to do a retrospective amendment. So this question was also in favor of the government, saying that government has that lawmaking power to make it prospectively and retrospectively. But whatever you are saying, there is a substance. Maybe that negotiable instrument judgment may have to be looked at and it could be challenged. I agree with you, Sunil.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So once again, thanks to all the members who have participated today on the occasion of the recent changes in GST. Normally, we used to have a practice of doing some sessions like what every month, first week we plan to go for income tax, and the end of the month we plan to go for GST. But nowadays, everybody, those who are in interest in the GST and particularly about Sudhir sir, everybody they know that about the Sudhir sir that is much talented in expression and much talented in giving such a vocabulary like understanding by each and every member is so appreciated, and his positive nature. Whenever we use it to speak with him by phone also, never he says that no. Every time he used to encourage all the practitioners to give his knowledge, to share his knowledge to members. It is warm welcome by the AP Tax Bar once again. And we humbly request you, sir, definitely we want to have some more sessions with you very shortly and to be enhance our knowledge under GST, sir.
Sure,
Please,
sir. Anytime. Anytime.
thank you, sir.
I'll be happy to come.
Thank you so much, sir. And especially our beloved senior advocate, Mr. Chitkara, sir, Rakesh Chitkara, sir. Actually, his health is not well, unfortunately, and even the circumstances is not supported him also. He joined today as the chairman of our session is so appreciated. And my special thanks to all the participants who joined today and who have enhanced their knowledge is so appreciated. And I think when I viewed it is showing like 79 in here, and need to check in the YouTube also. Many viewers, like last time also, the viewers in Zoom is 70, and there in the YouTube is 199. It is really a good target to us, and definitely this time also we'll reach more. And definitely this month end, because of this income tax last date and last date of income tax, last date of GST are 9C and 4. Every the aspect is there, like whether need to be conducted or next week can be continued. We'll think and come back to you. And thank you so much to one and all for your special this one joined in this occasion. Thank you so much to Sudhir sir once again. Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thank you so much to President sir. President sir, thanks a lot once again. And my special thanks to Venkat, who taken this opportunity of conducting this session today. And on behalf of me, because today my last examination in law for 6th semester, where I could not join today, but Venkat has taken such a pain and today has taken all the responsibility of conducting the session is so appreciated. Thank you so much to one and all. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, sir. Session ఇంకా close చేస్తున్నాను ఇంకా.
Yeah.
Right, sir.